The Spirit's Book by Allan Kardec. Part 3. Moral Laws. Chapter 6. The Law of Destruction. Necessary destruction and abusive destruction.
Is destruction a law of nature?
It is necessary for everything to be destroyed in order to be reborn and regenerated. What you call destruction is no more than transformation that is aimed at renewing and improving living beings.
Has the destruction instinct been given to living beings for providential purposes?
God's creatures are the instruments that God uses for attaining the divine ends. In order to feed themselves, living beings destroy each other with the dual purpose of maintaining the balance of reproduction, which might otherwise become excessive, and utilizing the remains of their external envelopes. But it is only the envelope that is destroyed. The envelope is only an accessory and not the essential part of the thinking being. The essential part is the indestructible intelligent principle, which is developed through the various metamorphoses that it undergoes.
If destruction is necessary for the regeneration of beings, why does nature surround them with the means of self-preservation and conservation?
To prevent their destruction before the proper time. Any destruction that occurs too soon retards the development of the intelligent principle. That is why God has given to each being the need to stay alive and reproduce.
Since death should lead us to a better life and deliver us from the ills of this world, and should therefore be desired instead of dreaded, why do humans have an instinctive horror of it and see it as a cause for apprehension?
We have already stated that humans should seek to prolong their life in order to accomplish their task. That is why God has given them the self-preservation instinct. It sustains them in all their trials. Without it, they would frequently give in to discouragement. The secret voice that tells them to avoid death also tells them they may yet do something more for their progress. Whenever danger threatens them, it is a warning to them that they must take advantage of the time God has granted them. But ingrates usually give thanks to their lucky star instead of their creator.
Why has nature placed the agents of destruction side by side with the means of self-preservation?
The remedy beside the illness. We already have told you, in order to maintain balance and to serve as a counterweight.
Is the need for destruction the same on all worlds?
It is in proportion to how material each particular world is. It disappears altogether in a purer physical and moral state. On worlds more evolved than yours, the conditions of existence are altogether different.
Will the need for destruction always exist for humankind on the earth?
The need for destruction diminishes among humans to the degree that their spirit overcomes matter. That is why you may observe that the horror of destruction follows upon intellectual and moral development.
In their present state, do humans have an unlimited right of destruction in regard to animals?
That right is limited to the need of providing for their food and safety. Abuse has never been a right.
What about destruction that exceeds the limits of need and safety? Hunting, for instance, when it has no other objective than the pleasure of destroying needlessly.
It is a predominance of the animal nature over the spiritual nature. All destruction that exceeds the limits of need is a violation of God's law. Animals only destroy to satisfy their needs, but humans who have free will destroy without need. They will be called to account for abusing the freedom granted to them, because in such cases they yield to base instincts.
Do those cultures that carry their scrupulousness to excess regarding the destruction of animals have any special merit?
Such excess is a sentiment that in itself is praiseworthy, but it becomes abusive and its merit is neutralized by other kinds of abuse. They act more out of superstitious fear than true humaneness.
Destructive calamities.
For what purpose does God inflict humankind with destructive calamities?
To force them to progress more quickly. Have we not stated that destruction is necessary for the moral regeneration of spirits who accomplish a new degree of perfection during each new existence? You must see the end in order to appreciate the results. You only judge such things from your own personal point of view, and you regard such afflictions as calamities because of the injury they cause you. However, these hardships are often necessary in order to make things arrive at a better order more quickly and to accomplish in a few years what would otherwise require many centuries.
Couldn't God employ other methods instead of destructive calamities for improving humankind?
Yes, and they are employed every day. Through the knowledge of good and evil, God has given to each of you the means of progressing. However, humans do not take advantage of them. Thus, it is necessary to afflict them in their pride and make them feel their own weakness.
But the moral person succumbs to these calamities along with the wicked. Is this just?
Throughout life, humans relate everything to their body, but after death, they think differently. As we have already stated, the life of the body is almost nothing. A century in your world is but a flash in eternity. The sufferings that last a few of your months or days are nothing and are only a lesson that will serve you in the future. Spirits who have pre-existed and have survived everything else comprise the real world. See number 85. They are the children of God and the objects of the divine kindness. Bodies are no more than disguises behind which they make their appearance in the world. In the great calamities that decimate humankind, those who succumb are like an army during war, witnessing their uniforms become tattered, worn out, or lost. The general is more concerned for his soldiers than their uniforms.
But aren't the victims of these calamities actual victims nonetheless?
If we considered life as it is in itself and how insignificant it is in comparison with the infinite, the less importance we would attach to it. In another life, those victims will find ample compensation for their sufferings if they endured them without complaining.
Are destructive calamities useful from a physical point of view, notwithstanding the hardships they cause?
Yes, they sometimes modify the conditions of a region, but the good that results from them is usually only felt by future generations.
Couldn't calamities also be moral trials for humankind by exposing humans to the most afflictive needs?
Calamities are trials that furnish humans with an opportunity to exert their intelligence and to demonstrate their patience and resignation before the will of God. At the same time, calamities enable them to develop the sentiments of self-denial, self-detachment, and love for their neighbor, if they are not dominated by selfishness.
War.
What is the cause that leads humankind to war?
The predominance of the animal nature over the spiritual and the satisfaction of their passions. In the state of barbarity, nations only know right by might, and that is why war is a normal state for them. As humans evolve, war will become less frequent since they will avoid its causes, and when it does become necessary, they will know how to make it more humane.
Will war someday disappear from the earth?
Yes, when men and women understand justice and practice God's law, then all nations will live as brothers and sisters.
What has been the goal of Providence in making war necessary?
Freedom and progress.
If war is meant to bring freedom, why is it that it has usually had subjugation as its objective and result?
Temporary subjugation makes people weary, thus becoming a catalyst for progress.
What is to be thought about those who stir up war for their own gain?
They are truly guilty and will require many lives to expiate all the murders they have caused, for they will have to answer for every individual whose death they caused to satisfy their own ambition.
Murder.
Is murder a crime in God's sight?
Yes, a great crime, because those who take the life of another fellow being thereby cut short a life of expiation or mission, hence the evil.
Is there always the same degree of culpability in murder?
We have already said, God is just. God judges the intent rather than the deed.
Does God excuse murder in cases of legitimate defense?
Only necessity can excuse it. But if we can save our life without having to take the life of the aggressor, we must do so.
Are persons culpable for the murders they commit in war?
Not if they are coerced through force. Nonetheless, they are responsible for the cruelties they commit. Likewise, their display of humaneness will also be taken into account.
Which is more culpable in God's sight, parricide or infanticide?
They are both equally culpable, for all crime is crime.
Why is infanticide a custom condoned by legislation among certain cultures that are already evolved from an intellectual perspective?
Intellectual development does not necessarily imply moral development. A spirit of superior intelligence may be a bad spirit. It has lived many lives without improving itself morally, gaining only knowledge.
Cruelty.
May we link the sentiment of cruelty to the instinct of destruction?
It is the destruction instinct in its worst form, because even though destruction is sometimes necessary, cruelty never is. It is always the result of a wicked nature.
Why is cruelty the dominant characteristic of primitive peoples?
Among primitive peoples, as you call them, matter dominates spirit. They abandon themselves to their animal instincts, and since they do not have any other needs beyond those of the body, they care only about their own self-preservation. This is what usually makes them cruel. Moreover, peoples of imperfect development are under the dominion of equally imperfect spirits. These imperfect spirits remain sympathetic to them until more highly advanced peoples come to destroy or weaken their influence.
Why is it that in the most advanced civilizations there are individuals who are at times as cruel as barbarians?
For the same reason that on a tree loaded with good fruit, there is always some that is rotten. Such individuals have, if you wish, only the appearance of civility. Wolves among the sheep, low order, very backward spirits may incarnate among advanced people in the hope of their own progress. However, if the trial is too difficult, their barbaric nature prevails.
Will the society of moral individuals someday be purged of evildoers?
Humankind is evolving. Those who are dominated by the instinct of evil and who are out of place among moral people will disappear little by little, like bad grain being separated from the good when threshed, but they will be born again in other envelopes. Then, with more experience, they will comprehend good and evil better. You have an example in the plants and animals that you have learned how to perfect by developing new qualities in them. Very well, it is only after many generations that perfection becomes complete. This is a picture of the different existences of human beings.
Dueling.
Can dueling be considered a case of lawful self-defense?
No, it is murder and an absurd custom worthy of barbarians. In a more advanced and moral civilization, people will understand that dueling is as foolish as the combats of antiquity that were regarded as the judgment of God.
Can dueling be considered as murder on the part of him who, knowing his own weakness, is almost certain to be killed? It is suicide.
It is suicide.
And when the odds are equal, is it murder or suicide?
It is both.
In dueling, what is the value of what is called the point of honor?
That of pride and vanity, two sores of humankind.
But aren't there cases in which honor really is at stake and where refusal would be cowardice?
It depends on customs and usages. Each country and each epoch has a different way of regarding such matters. Nevertheless, when human beings are better and more advanced morally, they will understand that the true point of honor is above earthly passions, and that it is neither by killing nor by getting themselves killed that a wrong is redeemed.
The death penalty.
Will the death penalty someday disappear from human legislation?
The death penalty will assuredly disappear, and its demise will signal progress for humankind. When humans become more enlightened, the death penalty will be completely abolished on the earth. They will no longer need to be judged by others. I speak of a time which is still very distant for you.
The law of self-preservation gives us the right to defend our own life. Doesn't this right apply when we eliminate a dangerous member from society?
There are other means of saving yourselves from danger without killing. Moreover, it is necessary to open the door of repentance to the criminal rather than to close it.
Although the death penalty may be banned from civilized societies, wasn't it necessary in less advanced times?
Necessary is not the right word. People always think a thing is necessary when they cannot find anything better, but as they become enlightened, they better understand what is just or unjust, and they repudiate the excesses committed in times of ignorance in the name of justice.
Is the restriction on cases in which the death penalty is applied an indication of the progress of civilization?
How can you doubt that? Does your spirit not revolt when you read the reports of the human slaughters that were formerly perpetrated in the name of justice and frequently in honor of the divinity, of the tortures to which the condemned and even the accused were submitted in order to wrest from them through excess pain a confession for a crime that they very often had not even committed?
Well then, if you had lived in those times, you would have thought that it was all quite natural, and perhaps as a judge you would have acted likewise. It is thus that what seems just in one era seems barbaric in another. Only the divine laws are eternal. Human laws change with progress, and they will change further until they have been put in harmony with the divine laws.
Jesus said, "Whoever kills by the sword shall perish by the sword." Don't these words represent the consecration of the penalty of talion? And isn't the death imposed on the murderer an application of this penalty?
Be careful. You are as mistaken about these words as you are about many others. The penalty of talion is the justice of God. It is God himself who applies it. You all suffer this penalty at every moment because you are punished wherein you have sinned, either in this life or in another. Those who have caused their fellow humans to suffer will be in a situation in which they themselves will suffer. In like manner, this is the meaning of Jesus' words. Didn't he also say to you, "Forgive your enemies"? And didn't he teach you to ask God to forgive your offenses as you yourself forgive? That is, in the same proportion in which you yourself have forgiven. Understand this well.
What about the death penalty imposed in the name of God?
It is equivalent to taking God's place in the practice of justice. Those who act thus reveal how far they are from actually understanding God and how much they still have to expiate. The death penalty is a crime when it is applied in the name of God, and those who do so will be held responsible for every murder.